How about now? Ooh, I'm pegging that off the... Okay, so now my input is probably too hot, too loud. All right. Just get everything settled in. This is a new setup for me tonight, so let's put this on this for the moment. And then if I can see if people are in, that would be good. So how do I do that? I'm going to have some help here in a minute. The broadcast is going to officially start, or the show will officially start in a few minutes, 4 minutes or so. I'm still getting settled in. I believe I'm going live, but I haven't done this particular setup tonight, so I'm getting logged in here real quick. And that's if I remember my passwords to get into every place. And now I need two-step verification, and that's hilarious. And they want me to do it on my phone, which is in the other room. Be right back. Man behind the curtain. Let's try that again. All right. The joys of two-factor authentication. Keeping you safe, but also making it a pain in the butt. Okay, hold on. Okay. I know darn well that if I pull this up, it's going to pull up something on the wrong screen. So what I will do is I will pull this up and go there. Wow, I'm discombobulated. Like, we're broadcasting, and I have nothing under control right now.
You're out of sync.
I got, yeah, totally out of sync. This whole not going in TikTok and just going straight to YouTube. That's a whole different thing. Let me prove that we're doing what I think we're doing. Ugh. Wow, what a mess. Can you verify I'm on? On, we are on live.
Yeah.
So you're hearing me ramble to myself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking fantastic.
Do you have my mic live or?
Your mic's live. Talk.
Where is it?
Oh yeah, I see it. Oh, it's on your chair. I put it on your seat. You're probably sitting on it.
I'm sitting on it.
You're lit. Nice. That could have been.
That was great.
That could have been really embarrassing. All right.
I never.
Just a couple minutes. This is a whole new setup. Most of you, if you are watching live right now, know that normally I simulcast on TikTok and YouTube at the same time. Not YouTube, sorry, this is YouTube. TikTok, yes, TikTok and YouTube at the same time. Holy crap. But I have been spanked and on some kind of restriction for about 7 days. I'm going to miss 3 lives on TikTok. So if you're here from TikTok, and I'm trying to find a way to be able to see live comments, but I guess I don't get to see those. But if you're here from TikTok,
comments?
I can't see them.
Oh.
I don't have them on my screen, so that's the pain in the butt.
You just took your screen away.
What?
Your backdrop just disappeared.
Disappeared? You mean this backdrop?
Okay.
And again, there's a delay, so you're not going to see what I see. I'm toggling between different camera views, Rhonda.
Oh, okay. So it's just you.
Yeah. So I was just me. There's a preview on the screen right now, but again, there's a delay. So, anyways, bye. We are so discombobulated. So
Okay.
Oh, it's 6 o'clock. My gosh, I'm behind. And I'm out of sync. So, okay, let's get started. I apologize for the rough start this evening. As some of you know, I normally, like I said, I broadcast on TikTok primarily, with YouTube being a place that I'm trying to move towards longer format because I talk a lot. This whole setup of not having my phone in front of me and seeing all the normal comments and interaction is strange. There's hardly anybody following the YouTube channel. We're trying to build that right now. So there's 6,500 or whatever, roughly, over on TikTok. And usually the room has got like 100 people going at some given time, and it feeds off of things for me, and I get more excited when I know people are listening. Tonight, I feel like I got nobody here, and I have no idea because I have
These people are not nobodies.
No. What I'm saying is I don't have any metrics to tell me any. I'm literally talking to myself with no input. Like I can't. I'm not coordinated at the moment to see that I even have anybody in the room at all.
You have 11 people.
Okay, fantastic. Hopefully some of you are here from TikTok. If you are, say hi in the comments. Let me know that you came over, and thank you for taking the effort to come over. What we're going to talk about tonight is a few things. Here's the agenda. So we're going to talk about John Paul Renison. This is an individual supposedly from the UK who on Tumblr confessed to the killing of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, who Luigi Manjone is currently on trial or about to face 3 different trials on. Well, actually 2 different. One in New York State, one in the federal government, in the federal courts of New York. And actually the Pennsylvania case isn't about the murder. It's more about the false ID and firearms charges in Pennsylvania. But 3 different court systems are trying or waiting in line to try Luigi Manjone. In the meantime, an individual named John Paul Renison supposedly posted, and we're going to take a look at that tonight in detail, about confessing to the crime of Brian Thompson. I almost said Brian Kohberger because my show also covers the Idaho 4 murders and Brian Kohberger. But no, Brian Thompson is who we're talking about. In addition, we're going to talk about a really interesting thing that one of my TikTok followers shared with me today, literally like 3 hours before going live. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to do a bunch of research to try to get that into the show, about Shawn Morrow. He is a journalist with the More Perfect Union. He admitted recently, and someone found it, that he was, lots of rumors were going around that he was the shooter of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, and that TMZ, who did a documentary on Luigi Manjone, I think theirs was the one that was called The Mind of a Killer or something very salacious. The TMZ actually reached out to this reporter, Shawn Morrow, saying, hey, rumor has it that you're the shooter. And we're going to cover a little bit about that because that was really interesting, because it's not only interesting that there was tips coming in that he was the shooter, that there's reasons why they were saying that he was the shooter. He kind of looks like the early images that we saw of Luigi Manjone, and I'll show that tonight. But I want to do that with a little bit of caution, because I'm getting spanked by social media when I do nothing more than repeating what's out there in mainstream media. In fact, MSN, mainstream media, almost MSN, MSN has reported about this journalist who is coming out now and saying, hey, TMZ thought I was the shooter, or was at least questioning me as being the shooter in the Brian Thompson situation. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about what happened on my lives indirectly a little bit, and then more directly towards the end when I get into the whole, what I would call the war on critical thinking. And so we're going to talk about the Pam Bondi, U.S. Attorney General, who basically directed the federal government to go for the death sentence against Luigi Manjone. This is something that we already thought was going to happen. We already expected that the federal government was going after Luigi Manjone. But the point being is that she officially directed the federal government in New York State to go after that. Now, Karen Ignolo, who's Luigi Manjone's attorney, had a response to that. When I was reading Karen Ignolo's response, which was she was calling the healthcare industry a murderous industry in the United States. And it was right about that time that I got disconnected from live, and I was told that I was promoting hate speech, and I was banned, instant loss of my appeal. Nope, you are done for a week. Take a sabbatical. You're promoting hate speech. I believe, and I fully believe this, that it was because I was simply repeating and trying to explain to people what Karen's defense of Luigi Manjone looks like it's going to be, based on an episode of Law & Order, which she's an advisor on, and her statement about calling the healthcare a murderous industry. So I feel like I can get away with that talking about it on YouTube, but apparently I cannot get away with talking about it on TikTok. In no way, shape, or form does this show ever promote violence. It is not a call to action. We're going to talk about what that means. Why do I keep saying all the time, this is not a call to action? This is for educational purposes only. I use high-profile cases at the Devil's Advocates to illustrate mainstream media's basically trying of people in the court of a public opinion, where they basically have already swayed public opinion as to the guilt or innocence of a person before they even have their first day in trial. In addition, we use high-profile cases to show how law enforcement works and some of the tactics that law enforcement uses to convict people that they are convinced is the person who they want to pin with the crime. And then lastly, we also look at the judicial system and how the judicial system has failed us in America, considering that our country believes in the presumption of innocence and yet incarcerates more of the world's prison population than any developed nation on the planet. We have 4% of the population in prison, 20% of the world's prison population, which doesn't seem to jive with a nation that believes in the presumption of innocence, nor does it seem to jive with people like me who are trying to have open and critical thinking and hold mainstream media, law enforcement, and the judicial system their feet to the fire and criticize the way that they handle things. And instead, we get punished, we get shut down, we get told that we're practicing hate speech because it is perceived that if you stand up for the presumption of innocence, that you are then promoting violence. And that's what I'm essentially accused of at TikTok, was promoting violence because I happen to be saying that Luigi Manjone is, one, to be presumed innocent until he's proven guilty in a court of law, and two, trying to explain to people what is happening when Pam Bondi makes her statement and when Karen Ignolo makes her statement and what that all means and how it breaks out. And I'm trying to explain to people what I see and what I am reading between the lines, and that got me in trouble. I feel like we're going to be able to do it here. We'll see. Maybe just like at my other place, my wife will yell from the other room, you just got shut off and your live just got shut down by YouTube and you're told that you're going to jail or something like that. We'll see.
I don't think anything that drastic.
We probably won't go to jail, but we may lose all of our voice and all of our platforms. So we'll see. But I will be back on TikTok, and when I do get back, I have a feeling I know where TikTok got sketchy, and so I have to now make the decision on where and how I'm going to talk and how blunt. And I realize that when I move my hands in front of the microphone, it's adjusting the lighting and the white balance, and so I'll work on my studio performance as I get going. And then last couple things, like I said, we're going to get into my definition and my understanding of how freedom of speech versus freedom of reach works. You might think that's a little bit of a soapbox, so I'm going to save that towards the end in case you think, we really don't want to hear about your personal problems and your beef with TikTok. We're here to hear about Luigi Manjone. And that's fine. That's why it's going to leave that towards the end of the show for you. And then I think that's going to be basically it. I'll tell you at the end a little bit about what the future of Devil's Advocates is going to look like from my best guess. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start again by going to pull up our website here. This is devilsadvocates.info on the screen on YouTube, and you can see our schedule. I'm trying to keep this up to date with daily what's going on in bullet format, so you can kind of see what the highlights are of things going on in our world and in the Devil's Advocates. So this is where you want to go if you want to just see daily what's happening behind the scenes, because as you may have found out if you're on TikTok and just getting over to YouTube is, hey, where the hell is here's regular show? Which, by the way, is hurting my algorithm because I was getting rewarded for going regularly, and now I get to take a week sabbatical, which is going to hurt my algorithm and, all the games that go along with social media.
So somebody on here, Sarah said, or no, somebody said that we would set up a give, send, go if you need bail. You got some friends, baby.
Let's hope we don't need bail, and I don't count on a super outcry of support for that. So let's table that. That's not going to happen.
Well, just know that everybody supports you.
So, fantastic. All right. So let's talk about John Paul Renison. Again, so the main things one more time for just briefly. John Paul Renison. We're going to talk about Shawn Morrow. You may know nothing about Shawn Morrow. I'm going to introduce you to that, and we're going to spend some time talking about Shawn Morrow, and I'm going to make a point with that. We're going to talk about the Pam Bondi versus Karen Ignolo fight between the Department of Justice and basically, Luigi Manjone's attorney. We're going to talk about my TikTok live restriction and what got me in trouble a little bit more in depth. And we're going to talk at the end about the war on critical thinking, which is a bit of a soapbox rant, which I don't blame you if you don't want to hear. But if you do, I think you're going to learn something about it. And then maybe a little surprise teaser for something coming up. And we'll end right about there. All right. So let's get into John Paul Renison. You should see on my screen right now an article. This is the Tumblr article. So this is the Tumblr account of an individual claiming to confess to the murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare. Now, why does this matter so much? What sucks is I forgot to tell you, and is that all websites that I have allow me to use a highlighter tool to highlight the important paragraphs. And for some reason, MSN had me blocked down, and Tumblr has lost all of my highlights that I just did. So I'll do my best to read this along. So this account, DN838, does belong to an individual by the name of John Paul Renison. There aren't pictures of John Paul Renison, so we don't know if he looks anything like the shooter. But basically, if you look at this, he basically says, "Hello, my name is John Paul Renison. Although I prefer to go by JP." He basically talks about how he's a civil rights activist from the United Kingdom. He's not from the United States, he says. He's from the United Kingdom. He supports LGBT rights and stuff, and he has Marxist views, according to himself, on here. And today he has something to share with everyone in light of the recent situation with Luigi Manjone. "I confess to the killing of Brian Thompson on 4th of December, as well as the theft of multiple items, including a pistol I had no permit for." So a little bit of the TikTok sphere was blowing up. I love my followers on TikTok. Everybody and their dog was sending me "Oh my gosh, someone just confessed to killing Brian Thompson. And how does this change things? And I want to hear your take, because does this help Luigi Manjone or hurt Luigi Manjone?" So I'm going to get in a little bit more into the things that he said. And again, it sucks so much that I just had all of the highlights on this thing and they've all gone away somehow magically. I wonder if my other looking ahead, yeah, all my highlights have gone away. Fantastic. Frick, man, I had all these things highlighted so I could just hit these tonight, and I'm going to have to do it on the fly. So I will tell you the bottom line. Here's what the bottom line is, even though I'm going to get through this John Paul Renison discussion in detail. I don't believe the John Paul Renison thing is legit. So I'll just tell you that right off the bat. But that's my take. My take is it's not legit. It seems to be a fan. This is my take, and I'll tell you why. I'll show you the reasons why. I think it is a fan of Luigi Manjone. This is something I told you, I hinted about when we were talking about the show Law and Order, which Karen Ignolo, who's Luigi Manjone's attorney, she's an advisor on the television show Law and Order. And they did a special on Law and Order called Folk Hero. It's completely a ripoff of Luigi Manjone's story. And I said, how interesting is it that Luigi's attorney is literally an advisor to Law and Order, and they're doing a full special on that. In that special, the shooter who was depicting Luigi Manjone, if you will, in this case, was basically using a self-defense argument, and so we're gonna cover some of that as well in here, because that's what got me in trouble, is talking about those items. But where I'm going with this is, I think this individual has come forward because they're a fan of Luigi Manjone. They believe that Luigi Manjone is falsely imprisoned. And in this episode of Law and Order, there was a moment where they were talking about how the public loves this guy. And all these individuals were coming forward, claiming or dressing like the shooter to throw off law enforcement, and laughing about how law enforcement was chasing their own tails after all these false leads. And one of the detectives in Law and Order said, "This is their I Am Spartacus moment." What they meant by that is that in the movie I Am Spartacus, or Spartacus, the Roman Empire was after Spartacus, who had done an act of rebellion against the government. This is the same thing that they're suggesting in the film that Luigi Manjone, or the fictional character Ethan Weller from Law and Order. Wow, see, you scared the shit out of everyone on. You just probably woke everybody up. So I guess you should thank you. Somebody told me that they fall asleep on my lives until my wife sneezes. So you can thank me later. Anyways.
Sorry.
So the point being is that in the Law and Order special, they indicated that the people love what Ethan Weller did, the fictional character, and that people dressing up like him and trying to get him off or spread reasonable doubt was the I Am Spartacus moment. It's people standing up and saying, "I'm the shooter, I'm the shooter, I'm the shooter." And so this is what this feels like to me as well. It's an individual who sympathizes with Luigi Manjone and has created a narrative to say, "Hey, I am the shooter." And it's going to do nothing for Luigi Manjone, even in this person's own words. The government, according to this person's own words, the government's never going to drop going after Luigi Manjone. According to this individual, he's already confessed. He confessed both to the defense team and in law enforcement, supposedly, confessed to the murders, but they want nothing to do with it because they already have their guy. They already know who they want to go after. So he's like, "Hey, I did it. Not only did I did it, but I confessed to it, and they don't want to hear my confession because they already have their guy." Again, I take this with a huge grain of salt. There's also an individual or two online now saying that this guy, after coming out and confessing, is facing legal problems and is trying to get a GoFundMe to raise money for himself. That sounds super sketch. Did you have something there, Peanut
No,
Gallery?
I was laughing. Somebody said, poor wifey sneezing.
Yeah. All right. So we have this is from this individual, John Paul Renison. I confess to the killing of Brian Thompson. And I'm going to save the rant about why everybody else is allowed to say stuff, but I'm not, without getting shut down. No, this is not an April Fool's joke, he said. It's not a hoax or a parody. He goes on to talk about how if he wanted publicity, he would have just kept doing his other types of high-profile stuff. If he wanted to get Luigi off, I do not believe this will clear his name. The narrative is set up for painting him as guilty, and it would backfire horribly if they were to accept that someone else was the culprit. So basically what he's saying is, me confessing to this, no, it's not going to help Luigi Manjone, and I agree with that, because even if he really was the shooter, at this point they're all in on who the shooter is, and they're never going to really care who did it because they've already fingered their man. Now that's one of my points, is that law enforcement oftentimes, in my opinion, and our judicial system, in our opinion, once they have decided who they're going to go after, they are all in on that. And the job from that point forward is to do the best job they can to prove in court that the guy that they arrested and pinned for it is the guy. That's their job. And the defense's job is to prove it's not the guy. And it's the jury's job to figure out which one of them is telling the truth. So to this guy's credit, he's right about one thing. It doesn't matter at this point who confesses to it. They're not going to drop their case. They already have decided who it is, and they're going to make their best case to prove to you that that's the person who it is, even if there is somebody who confesses. So, in that part, he's right. Simply put, he says he wanted to cause tension. He admits that he's from the UK, but somehow he's interested in the U.S. healthcare system because he is, in his country, even working on targeting NHL, the National Health, I think it's the National Health Society, and the quality of health services, especially when it comes to wait times and the quality of care for disabled and transgender individuals. So this person's big into the transgender, LGBTQ community. That's their big thing, and they're trying to tie in that the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO is related in some way to that. So he indicates at some point here that he was thankful that his message of shooting Brian Thompson has made it to the people of the UK. So he's like, hey, yeah, I committed an act of murder in the United States, but I was hoping it would make it to the UK, and it has. So my message has been received. That sounds a little, suspicious to me as well, personally. Again, I don't think this guy is legitimately the shooter, and I don't think this is how it would go down. But we're going to talk about it because the internet's abuzz, and people want to know what my feelings are. So you know a little bit preview now what my feelings are on the matter. But we're going to continue to break this down a bit.
You have 25 viewers, by the way.
Oh, we got a quarter of the excellent. Thank you, anybody, by the way. And boy, my mic is hot, so I probably just yelled in your ear. My wife can sneeze and outpower me, even though she's down 3 decibels from me. But anyways.
I wonder if you can fix it so you can see comments by opening up YouTube on a different screen.
Well, the problem is that you don't want me to just open up my browser, which will first open up on the where everybody can see it thing, and who knows what kind of sketchy shit I've got on my browsers. So let's just not pop. Let's just not pop anything up over there right now. We'll work that out for another time. I never know where I've been surfing and what I could
see all your tabs right now.
You can see all my tabs for this particular account. Let's not get into it. It's a long story. I've got multiple browser tabs, right, and logins and.
I'd have to really zoom in to see what kind of nasty stuff you've been surfing about.
How did this go sideways?
You started it.
Anyways, he talks a little bit about how hard it is to get a gun in the UK, but when he came over here, he also said that he was over here with his mom in the country, who was with his mother. And again, I'm so irritated that all of my highlights have gone away. He indicates here that he didn't know if he could actually get away with it. However, he didn't really care because he has nothing to lose at this point. Somebody that was really important to him in his life, he says, is no longer kind of speaking to him, or he's never going to be able to speak to him again. And so he has nothing to lose. And even at this point, he still has nothing to lose, which is why he's deciding that doing this, it didn't matter if his life was forfeit because of it, and coming out and confessing. Doesn't matter if his life is forfeit, because in his opinion, his life already is forfeit. So that's what it's about. Again, we go on a little bit about the LGBT community, the plus community. And he talks about how it was related. He said the main catalyst for leading to the events of December 4th eventually happening was a trans woman that I sacrificed almost everything to protect. And he doesn't go into detail of what that means, but he relates the shooting of Brian Thompson to a trans woman that he was helping in some manner and trying to protect, probably from United Healthcare. And I'm presuming, if this has any weight to it all, what he's suggesting is perhaps this was a U.S. citizen that he was trying to help and was struggling with something to do with United Healthcare. He continues on, if this alters your perception somewhat, good. If it upsets you or caused you to try denying, then I don't care, go fuck yourself, is literally his words. We can get away with that on YouTube at least once or twice, so we'll keep it to a minimum. I'm revealing this through Tumblr, he said, because the platform is where he's received the most traction in the past. Now, I want to point out that a lot of what this thing down here is here's the hashtags. Luigi didn't do it. Luigi's innocent. Luigi did nothing wrong. Luigi Manjone. Luigi's a hero. I love Luigi, and so on. So this is, again, why I believe that this is a super fan of Luigi Manjone, who is either writing a fake confession on a fake account, and they're not even this person, or they are a super fan of Luigi Manjone and they're willing to do the I am Spartacus moment. I am the shooter. So I don't know that I believe this at all. But here's the thing. Wouldn't you think law enforcement should be looking into this individual if they've confessed and they're saying it, and at least take it seriously? Should mainstream media be all over it? If mainstream media was still looking for somebody and didn't know who the killer was, they would probably jump all over this guy's. We've got somebody who just confessed, and it would be all hands on deck, and it would be all over the news. Hey, somebody just confessed to this, and we think we got somebody. But because they've got their guy, again, we're not going to talk about John Paul Renison. So in this thing, John Paul Renison is asked, go ahead, what?
Somebody had a question. They wanted to know if this guy, for giving this perhaps a false confession, if he can be charged with a crime.
Well, see, here's the difficulty in that. First, he's a UK citizen. He's not in the United States. So can the U.S. extradite him to the U.S. for something? Sure, they probably could. But it's probably going to get blown off, in my opinion, as a blowhard and nobody really cares. If he gets a lot of traction and he gets a GoFundMe thing going and there's lots of money involved, then the government will step in and take the funds because that's a profit matter. And that was super prejudicial, right? That wasn't fair. But yeah, if money's involved, then they will probably suddenly step in. But if he's just a guy talking, they're probably not going to do a whole lot. That's my opinion because I'm cynic a little bit. All right. So this particular person starts getting questions. He's like, all right, I keep receiving a lot of the same questions, so I'll answer them. Why are you choosing to reveal this now and not, and not earlier/later? And his reasons are, one, to verify Luigi's innocence in the case, since I think it's about time that I make my actual cause and ideology clear to everyone. So again, his main concern is clearing Luigi's name, even though earlier he told us this is not going to clear Luigi's name because they already got him and they're all in, and no matter what I do and confess, they're not going to change that opinion. So he's doing it for Luigi, but he's not doing it for Luigi because it's not going to help Luigi, other than maybe clearing Luigi's name as they continue to prosecute him, even though he's innocent. That's maybe what his point is. Why aren't you turning yourself into the police, they say? He's answering that. I did turn myself in, he says. Nothing happened. As far as I can tell you, they don't hold any interest in solving the actual case anymore, and anyone coming forward is unlikely to change the outcome that they are looking for. They are dedicated to trying to make an example out of Luigi, and it would be damaging for them to admit his innocence. For journalists, I am planning on reaching out to them within the coming days, but I'm keeping into a fairly minimal while I am preparing how to write my full story. Now, that's the only part that'll be super interesting. So according to him, and this, by the way, all rings true to me as far as that's how it works. Yes, they have already decided who the shooter is. Mainstream media is telling you every day he is the killer. Mainstream media is telling you every day that if you question and you actually say anything about the presumption of innocence of Luigi, that you are sick and deranged and something's wrong with you. And people want to know what's wrong with America, that they're supporting this guy. As if we have all lost our minds in America and forgotten that our entire principle of our legal system is innocent until proven guilty. How is this man already convicted in the court of public opinion, and now saying that he might be innocent makes you sick and demented, and people asking what's wrong with you? That's what's wrong with America, is that this kind of thing is happening. We should be able to assume that he's innocent until proven guilty, but that's not the case. But if it's true, if it's true that he did turn himself in and law enforcement turned a blind eye and he's going to go talk to journalists about it, that will be interesting. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. But that will be the time that I will take this story seriously. Because if a journalist gets on this and a journalist can back up anything he says, that he actually turned himself in and law enforcement turned a blind eye to it, then we've got a story. But until that time, John Paul Renison, I'm going to have to weigh this as a little bit of a sketch. Anyways, why was there a gun and confession found on Luigi? I don't know, he says. I'm pretty sure that they were planted on him by the NYPD, as people suspect. I never attempted to frame anyone, nor did I have any accomplices. Now, if you watch my TikTok channel, and even if you watch the YouTube channel, you'll know I have a podcast that I've started, one called The Game Theory. It's the podcast is called The Devil's Briefcase, but episode 1, I believe, was on the game theory. And it talks about, did Luigi Manjone was he part of a group of conspirators that were playing a game? This has a reference to the Monopoly money and several other things, and it had accomplices. The very first thing supposedly, and I need to make sure we take this with a grain of salt. The very first thing supposedly that Luigi Manjone said upon his arrest was that he had a confession letter in his backpack, supposedly, that said, I acted alone, and I want everybody to know I acted alone. So like right off the bat, he's like, yep, I'm the guy that's guilty, and I acted alone, nobody else was involved. This guy here is doing the same thing. I acted alone, nobody else was involved. Luigi wasn't helping me, it was all me, and the NYPD must have planted evidence on him. Now, again, that is possible. That is possible. The sad part is we should be allowed to talk about that. We should be able to ask those questions and as adults have a conversation. But it appears to me, and I don't want to bash TikTok too much, but it appears to me on TikTok you can't do that. We're not allowed to have open discussions about it and say, is it possible that the NYPD planted evidence on Luigi Manjone? Because they consider that inciting violence because you're supporting a killer. Again, to say that you're supporting a killer means you already have decided Luigi Manjone is guilty before he's had his day in court. Ridiculous that I have to keep hitting this point. He should have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Even if you believe that Luigi Manjone confessed to it originally in some kind of letter or whatever, he still has his day in court. But I'm getting on a soapbox when I told you I was going to save the soapbox for the end. Let's continue. Anything I should pause about there, Rhonda?
I'm trying to work on it, getting it so you can have comments.
Okay.
There's a lot in here. I just don't know what's important.
Okay. So how do you feel about, how do you know how to operate a firearm despite being in the UK? I think that's kind of a silly question. To be fair with you, I'll be blunt. Shooting a firearm is not super difficult. It's a trigger. You pull a trigger, you aim it in the right direction, and you pull the trigger. People acting like you have to be trained in firearms to know how to pull a trigger is kind of ridiculous. But that's what they're kind of implying. Like, how did you learn how to shoot a firearm? First of all, let's keep in mind Brian Thompson was shot at near point blank range. It was within about 7 to 10 feet, I believe. So it wasn't a real long shot, and it's not super difficult. Especially when your target's not moving to try to dodge you. So I don't want to get super graphic on that, but the point being is these people who keep asking questions like, you had to have been trained in firearms to do this. No, you do not have to be trained in firearms to do something like that. So I just want to put that aside. What tools, now this will be interesting. This is, again, you want my take on something? Here's one of the most interesting things I found. What tools did you use to write on the bullet casings, or in the bullet casings? So we have been told by mainstream media that the bullet casings, there were 3 left behind at the scene that had the words deny, defend, depose written on those bullet casings. At first, it wasn't clear how they were written on it. Later on, it came out in at least one of the documents that it was written in Sharpie. So that was the official through leaked sources, that the bullets had deny, defend, depose written on the shell casings in Sharpie. Now we have this individual saying, I wrote the words out in marker and then lightly scraped them with a steel nail. As far as I know, that detail right there has never been released to the press. So if this would give, in my opinion, this would give validity to John Paul Renison. If it now comes out that it wasn't just a Sharpie, but they were scratched in with some kind of sharp instrument like a nail, that will to me be let's take this story more seriously, because I don't believe that's ever been leaked to the press. I want to be clear. I have any reason to believe that is true. We don't know that John Paul Renison is just not making up a detail here. But if it turns out that was, it indicates a couple of possible things. Now keep in mind, playing devil's advocates, because that's the name of my channel. even if it turns out that there were nail scratches into the lettering, it doesn't necessarily mean that this guy is the shooter. It could mean that the guy had inside information on the bullet casings. It could be a law enforcement officer. It could be somebody connected to law enforcement who told him by the by on the down low. So there's lots of ways you could have gotten that information that hasn't been publicly leaked. That doesn't mean you're the shooter. But I just want to make it clear to you. This is one of those areas. One, if he goes to reporters and he can verify and back up his story that he turned himself in and they ignored him, that will be verified by reporters and we'll have a story. If it turns out that he scratched stuff in with a nail on top of the Sharpie, which is a detail I don't believe has ever been leaked, that will also lead credence to this story. But until such time, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. What happened to the gun? He says, it was left near the scene of the crime. I feel like the one found on Luigi was likely the real murder weapon, even if it was planted. So what does that mean? Again, what this person is saying, and they could be totally making it up to fit the narrative that many people have that believe that Luigi Manjone is set up, was that Luigi Manjone may actually have the gun, but it wasn't because Luigi Manjone was the shooter. It was because the shooter, left that gun near the scene and law enforcement has had it in their possession and it ended up being planted on Luigi Manjone when they found their man. Now, this is something many people in the conspiracy theories / conspiracy camp against Luigi Manjone have been saying for the longest time, is that evidence is planted. I had a long live where I talked about the evidence and we talked about the arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where law enforcement admitted that they seized his items, started to search his backpack, repacked his backpack, took it to the Altoona Police Department, and then inventoried it a second time hours later where new items showed up in his backpack. 8 hours after the initial arrest, they all of a sudden find all this cash on him and all these extra items that weren't listed in the original list of inventory items. So it does lead to, even in the official court documents, to the question, where did all this extra stuff come in and when did it come in and how did it come in? And we do know that a New York police officer did actually show up in Altoona, Pennsylvania and signed the second inventory sheet that had all the things essentially, and again, you put the dots together, have all the things essentially to be able to get Luigi Manjone extradited to New York for the murder. Things that would be necessary to make it so they can extradite him to New York. So those things were just magically now in his possession. Were they there all along? I don't know. So I shouldn't say the word magically because maybe they were there all along. But what we do know is that his attorney, Thomas Dickey, is saying they searched his bag for a while without a warrant. They repacked his bag. There was an affidavit that was signed of what was found in the bag. It didn't list a bunch of stuff that shows up later, 8 hours later, when the New York Police Department shows up on site. And now there's a whole bunch of new stuff in there. And I thought I could keep the cat out of my room, and now the cat's trying to rub on my lighting again. Like I got a cluster tonight. All right. So they ask, give face, hand, travel evidence to back up your claims. In other words, they want to see this guy and see that his face looks like the shooter. Because we've got all these photos of the shooter, right? The pulled down mask, all these things. So they're like, show us your face, show us your hands, because people have been analyzing the hands of the shooter for quite some time, and show us the travel evidence. He claims that that's coming soon, including comparisons to the adjusters, right? So he's coming out in a few days with pictures of himself and details so that you can see that he indeed matches the description of the person that they're looking for. But again, let's note all the tags. Luigi didn't do it. Luigi did nothing wrong. Luigi is innocent. Luigi's a hero. I love Luigi. Free Luigi. All of these things. This person is all about... Now, granted, you could argue, and to be fair, you can argue he's tagging this because that's the people who care, right? The people who believe that Luigi Manjone is innocent are the ones who care. But it also leads you to, is this person making up a story because they are a huge, I love Luigi and I'll do anything for Luigi, I am Spartacus, okay? So, somebody asked him if he's a trans or cis man, and that was important to them. I don't know that I believe that it was all that important to the story. He's getting a lot of questions, so he says, I just looked at all the asks. God, this is going to be a long month, because he's like, I'm going to be answering questions forever. Then he shows this. Someone asks him, do you have any solid proof that it was really you? So he submits as his proof March 6th. So this was not too long ago, but a month ago, roughly, where he's supposed to be saying, fuck it, yes, I'm the adjuster. Somebody says, I have no idea who that is. Is that some kind of alt account? He's like, the name of the person that they gave behind Brian Thompson's death. The Luigi Manjone case, right? Yes. Not too bothered. I fucking love Luigi Manjone. He's like, valid. But that's his evidence that, yeah, I came in and outed myself on March 6th. I am the adjuster. And that's his evidence that he came out forward. Now, granted, he also told us that he's gone to law enforcement or to the authorities to tell them that he was the person and they didn't care. So this isn't, I'm assuming, what his confession was to law enforcement, but we'll see. He even said this is a confession to a close friend that he made almost a month ago. So he says, me literally submitting my confession to his defense, dumbass thing to do for a hoax or a parody, and anyone who has known me for more than a week knows I wouldn't pull this unless I was genuine. So he's basically saying, yeah, I confessed. I literally confessed to this. It's not a hoax, and if you know me, you'd know that I don't screw around kind of thing, right? All right, genuine question, someone says in your post. Not that I doubt you or don't respect your actions, quite the opposite. It just seems strange to me it goes against your MO, since your ideology was already quite clear through your actions. So again, he said he's already been a well-known activist. People know him for his work. He doesn't seem to be somebody who gives a rip about the healthcare system and or murder. So it doesn't seem to go against his MO and things that he's done in the past, including the way you describe the assassination seems to go against the monopoly money, the engraved bullets, etc. All right, he says it is. The engraved bullets and monopoly money were set up soon beforehand, with me planting the bag soon after. But I didn't mention them since I was trying not to make the initial blog too long with the specific details of the case. They were intended to send the message targeting private healthcare that many people have interpreted. So in other words, he's claiming, yes, he did do the monopoly money. It means, I just wanted to point out that the healthcare system makes a lot of money. I was trying to point that out, essentially, is what you're reading between the lines. And he doesn't really go into details about that or why he etched in, deny, defend, oppose. Does that mean that this person doesn't really understand why the actual shooter, if John Paul Renison's not the shooter and he just wants to take claim for it, maybe he doesn't understand the real motivation. So he's just kind of, I just did it because I thought it would be something cool to do. Because he doesn't really know why it was done. I don't know. We'll see. I would say it went against, I wouldn't say that it went against my MO. I have always been extreme and open about it. It's just an action is not something that serves as a common opportunity, especially when you live somewhere that has very strict laws when it comes to firearms. It was likely my one clear shot at making a very loud move that would be guaranteed to get the sort of attention that I was seeking on this subject. So he's just, again, saying, hey, I took an opportunity to make a national point or a worldwide point and did so. Did you have something over there, Rhonda?
I'm just fighting with this tablet trying to get it to show the chat. It doesn't.
Okay.
On your computer on the right side at the top, do you have a show chat option?
Yeah, I do know that there's a place to dock different things in show chat, but I don't have it working and I don't want to screw with it in mid-show. So it's something I should have worked out ahead of time. My bad. But you're here to read me my comments.
I know, but there's so many.
Oh my gosh. Do better. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. So this is a reposting of the same exact confession, but there are a few more things that I originally thought was interesting. Here, different people are, well, what's most interesting is to watch what he reblogged or what he reposts of other people's. And he reblogs about the bulletproof vest making Luigi look like he's guilty. The shackles and the bulletproof vest were designed to make him look like he was guilty. And parade him in front. He talks about Pam Bondi, something that got me in trouble on TikTok, talking about Pam Bondi and her directive to have the federal government go after the execution of Luigi Manjone. And so there's all this stuff that basically is all supportive. Luigi Manjone has been stripped of his legal and human rights since day one. Luigi Manjone has not been proven guilty of a single crime up until now, because Luigi Manjone has not had a trial yet. And if there's a time when you need to speak up for what's right, it's now. Don't make them make an example out of this young man and take his life. Your America has never been safe anyways, and it definitely isn't going to be if they keep getting away with their bullshit. Stand by Luigi, support Luigi, seek justice for Luigi. Anyways, I had more comments that I highlighted, but a lot of this stuff is just him reblogging a lot of stuff that is, Luigi's innocent, Luigi's not the guy, and by the way, I confessed to it, so you guys should take this serious. And again, I just wanted to let you know, because people have been asking me all day today, what is my thoughts about John Paul Renison, and I want to say, something feels off about it. Something feels like this is a I am Spartacus moment, that people are going to step up and say, I'm the one that did it, I'm the one that did it, to shed reasonable doubt on the case. And I understand why people feel that way and why they do that way. I'm not even telling you that John Paul Renison isn't legit because, again, there's a couple of things he can do in the next few days. He claims he's going to go to reporters and he's going to make his story known. If that happens, we'll have a whole different dialogue and a whole different discussion. I'm not saying he's not the guy. I'm also saying that I don't think that he is the guy or not. I have reasons to doubt this story, and it feels like an I am Spartacus moment. All right, we're going to cover this now. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is somebody sent me this when I just had very, very little time to cover it, that said, oh, by the way, did you know that there was another person? And yes, I know, by the way, that law enforcement supposedly was tracking a dead ringer for the suspect for days, supposedly, and then had to let them go because they had an airtight alibi. Now, I don't know that this guy is that person, but I will tell you is this guy, this reporter that we're going to look at here in a minute, by the way, bears an interesting resemblance to some of the photos of the adjuster in the early days. So I'll let you decide that for yourself. And again, it's funny. I want to make this point, by the way. I want to make this point early, maybe. If you look at this kind of stuff was posted by the New York, the New York NYPD over and over again. Pictures of the adjuster right next to Luigi Manjone. You know, this is the guy we're looking for. Look, this is the adjuster. This is Luigi Manjone. This is the adjuster. This is Luigi Manjone. You know, this is the adjuster. This is Luigi Manjone. They have no problems, mainstream media everywhere, posting pictures of we can't quite tell who this person is on a weird angle, camera, and then Luigi Manjone right next to it to say, don't you see the similarities? If I were to do the same thing, with an early individual who people were telling me could have been the shooter, and I did mention it on TikTok, I got shut down for hate speech for showing that guy's image. And I was like, that guy's a public figure, and everyone's telling me this guy could be the guy. And I was sitting there going, hey, look at this guy's picture. I got a slap immediately. A violation, inciting violence, violation of a person's privacy, even though he's a public figure, for even mentioning the guy's name, because his family was all over TikTok. And they look for people like me who ask questions. Well, people are saying this guy could be the guy. Could it be? And that was enough to say that I was inciting violence. So it's interesting that mainstream media can continue to put Luigi's face next to this image that we don't know for sure is Luigi, but the law enforcement has told us it is. And you are, as a citizen, just keep tying these two pictures together. Oh yeah, I can see the similarities. And if I were to show you this guy and put his image up and all the pictures that we have of him, like, do I have a bunch of pictures of him? There's a bunch of pictures of him. If I were to put a bunch of pictures of this guy up next to the adjuster's image, I can probably convince you that there's some similarities in this individual, in his build, in his nose, in his smile, crease lines, even in the forehead. And so if I posted his picture side by side, I would be hammered. I'd be kicked off of every social media platform for inciting violence, for implicating this guy, defamation of character, and on and on and on.
This is the guy that confessed?
No. This is a reporter that TMZ said people are saying is the shooter. That's what I'm going to get to in a minute. This reporter...
Oh.
This is a reporter who was approached by TMZ because they were being told at TMZ when they were getting ready to do their documentary on Luigi Manjone that you might be the shooter. People are saying you're the shooter. Why? Why do they say he's potentially the shooter? Not only did he kind of look like the adjuster, but he had a major beef with United Healthcare. And so people were saying, this is probably your guy. So this is an investigative reporter from the More Perfect Union. His name, I had it up on the screen. It was Shawn Morrow. So Shawn Morrow is right here in this image, and we have the video, and I could play it. This is the video right here that's featured in that article. This is on YouTube, and if you want to pause this, look at it, zoom in, you can get the URL right up here to the video. It's only 13 minutes. That video right there is fascinating. If I thought you wouldn't be bored to hell, I'd play the entire video for you. He calls out United Healthcare as being completely corrupt top to bottom, buying out places to basically help them deny claims, buying out insurance companies below them, buying out non-profit organizations and bringing it under their profit or for-profit organization, all kinds of shenanigans. He's been covering United Healthcare extensively for some time, and he's got a major beef with United Healthcare, which is why, according to him, TMZ thought, and lots of people were tipping him off saying, this is your shooter. This is the adjuster. And again, I'm not saying that. For God's sake, if I said exactly what I just said on TikTok, I would be kicked off of TikTok for good. I almost guarantee you. Because this is the same kind of thing that got me kicked off of the lives for a week at TikTok. As I was reading some other mainstream media news source and giving my analysis. And they said, hate speech, you're off. We will not allow you to talk about this person as being potentially the guy. I'm not. TMZ was. And mainstream and Microsoft, News Network, whatever, MSN is also covering the story. But it's okay for them to do it, I guess. But if I do it, I will be shut off. I'm on a personal soapbox. I said I would save that to the end. Let me try to get through this. All right. So this guy, he talks about advocacy and corporate accountability. And he got a phone call last week from a TMZ reporter. Said that they received several tips tying him to the killing of the United CEO, Brian Thompson. I'm actually going to play this clip for you. I'm going to play him in his own words saying what this article is about. Let me play this for you. This is him.
We can't post the link in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. The link, but they can see it on screen, so hopefully they can blow it up. So I'm going to hit refresh on this page, and I believe it's going to start, because if I hit play, you've already missed a few seconds. Let me unmute the sound. I'm going to hit play, and all things willing.
Wants to see his hands. Can we see his hands?
Yeah, his hands will be in this episode, I think.
Okay.
And it'll definitely be in the longer video, which I'll scan for you. Okay, let's hit refresh. Oh, you can't hear him.
For me to tell the story of how TMZ reached out claiming they had multiple tips saying I was the killer, and their reasoning and evidence are pretty wild. It started with this email with my name spelled wrong to my entire company, and then I just called them on the phone. This is that entire call.
We got a tip that this Shawn now works at More Perfect Union, and the name is Shawn now. Have you seen that your name is being tied to the murder of the CEO in New York?
Being tied to it? In by who?
A couple of people have wrote in saying that there's a Shawn that Shawn Morrow is of More Perfect Union is the killer.
That's very strange. I am a reporter who covers health issues, which might be part of it.
So the YouTube videos are yours.
Which YouTube videos would those be?
The video they're talking about the healthcare.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm a journalist.
So yeah, just so you know, we were getting tips because obviously, they're trying to basically say anybody who's spoken about whatever is a possible suspect,
Yeah, I mean, that's insane to me.
Has anybody else contacted you about this? Like the LP or anything?
No.
Oh, okay, so this is the first you've heard of it.
This is the first I've heard of it, yeah.
Those YouTube videos were journalistic investigations of the industry. If me calmly explaining what your job is sounds like a threat, then your job should not exist.
Yeah, so I have a similar feeling to him. If I'm not allowed to talk to you about what's going on in this case and be able to analyze it, and I'm a threat to you, and that you think I'm subversive and promoting hate speech because I'm asking questions, then something's wrong with your case. Something's wrong with your platform if I'm the danger to you for asking questions. And that's the same thing he's saying. Yeah, I do videos calling out the healthcare system, specifically, by the way, United healthcare system. And if me doing that, then the problem is the system, not me. And I have to agree with him. And yet, fortunately for him, he's a little bit better protected because I'm the one that's serving a week-long suspension. This video, by the way, is the longer video where he just shreds United Healthcare. And it's from about a year ago, I believe, that this video is. I might play little pieces of it so that you can see. And you'll get a better shot of his hands and all those things for those who are making hand comparisons. But what I wanted to go through is just talk a little bit more about some of the things. And again, I lost all my highlights. Thompson was fatally shot December 4th in a targeted attack. The FBI offered a $60,000 tip for anyone who led to the arrest. His name kept coming up in this because of the reporting that he does, and he bears a similarity to not to Luigi Manjone, I should say. He bears a similarity to the adjusters images, the famous, hostel images, for example, at the hotel, the hostel. So anyways, basically that's what this article talks about. Again, I lost my highlights, and I don't think there's anything more that you need to have other than you might want to look at this article. Maybe I'll post it in the show notes afterwards if you want to see the links and you can't pull it up here. Here again is the video. I'm just going to kind of give you a
few weeks
preview.
ago, producer Alec Opperman and
they talk
United
about
was founded in Minneapolis in 1977.
numbers. There's all kinds of numbers. They're talking about people who are hidden behind the scenes of United Healthcare. They're talking about this guy's showing all the people that are easy to find who's behind certain things, but basically United Healthcare hides one of the guys who's a real sketch. He talks about, I'm trying to find some good hits for you. how the HMOs were formed essentially by United Healthcare. He talks about how they started to use AI to help improve the number of denials, the amount of denials that were happening so they can get more money from denials. They talk about sketchy businesses. They talk about their funding, how their revenue continues to go up and up and up and up since they've become more efficient at denying people's claims in healthcare. They talk about the money. 1 in 5 health insurance claims are denied, 50 million in 2021. He goes on and on. He rips the shit out of United Healthcare, and it's super informative. He's got Wiley. He's got Andrew Wiley. That's the CEO of United Health Group, the boss of United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. We've talked about him before. He's got Wiley on here talking about some potentially sketchy shit. He talks about companies like this one, Optum, that they bought out and renamed and rebranded to do sketchy shit. It's more than we can cover right now. I recommend highly that you watch this individual. Look at the title, if you have problems finding the URL, What United Healthcare Doesn't Want You to Know, by a reporter that TMZ said they're getting lots of tips that he's the adjuster, that he has the beef against United Healthcare. So again, in this country, let me remind you, you should have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and you should be looking at other people who have motives. We already know that Luigi Manjone, for example, was not a customer of United Healthcare. Neither him or his family were a customer of United Healthcare. So again, you could see why some people might think that this guy has more of a motive than Luigi Manjone, because this guy is personally ripping on how bad United Healthcare is. So anyways, check out Shawn Morrow. And let me reiterate one more time, since YouTube has not shut me down like TikTok would have done by now, unfortunately, because they haven't shut me down. Let me reiterate. I'm only repeating what MSN has said. This guy has come forward saying, hey, a lot of people were apparently turning in my name as potentially the adjuster. I think it's crazy. And I'm showing you and analyzing that discussion. It's interesting, is it not? But if I were to say this, I would be inciting violence at a different platform, unfortunately. All right, so we talked about that pretty much in depth. Now let's talk about a little bit about, so we're kind of done with the John Paul Renison. I think that individual is just a I am Spartacus moment, but we will see if John Renison is going to come out with evidence that he contacted law enforcement and was turned down. Will he go to a mainstream reporter and get that covered? And if he does, that'll change our narrative quite a bit.
Some people were asking why Karen Agnifilo hasn't mentioned this.
Hasn't mentioned that guy? Mm-hmm. Which one? John Paul Renison or Shawn Morrow?
The one that's confessed to the...
Yeah, John Paul Renison just came out just a day or two ago, and there's no official statement because probably nobody's taking it seriously. Mainstream media is not covering this. This is blowing up on social media. Mainstream media isn't touching it with a 10-foot pole, and therefore I don't know that Karen Agnifilo is going to address it. But what I do want to talk about is, this is again what got us in trouble on TikTok just recently. Pam Bondi, Attorney General, has directed the state of New York to go for the death penalty for Luigi Manjone, something that most of us felt was already in the cards. They already had tipped their hand that they charged him with about 5 different things that include the death penalty in New York. Now again, keep in mind, for those who are hearing this for the first time, New York State does not execute anybody anymore. They have, as a state, New York State has determined that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment, and they, since like 2004, I believe, have decided that they will not execute anyone. The state of New York does not execute people, but the federal government, who has a federal court system in New York State, the federal government still does execute people. And according to Pam Bondi, she is directed by President Trump, and this is not a political statement. I'm not trying to make this political at all. Pam Bondi says that she's directed by Trump to be hard on crime and to return to the practice of the death penalty, of prosecuting federal cases with the death penalty, because they believe that the death penalty is a deterrent to crime. And so she says, I've been directed by Trump to be hard on criminals and to start seeking the death penalty more often. And therefore, I, as Attorney General of the United States, direct the federal government in New York State to execute Luigi Manjone if you can, that you must seek the death penalty. The reason why this is happening, and this is the reading between the lines between Karen and Pam that got me labeled as hate speech on TikTok, for simply trying to explain to you what's happening. Pam Bondi in my opinion, is directing the federal government in New York to go for the death penalty because the reading between the lines is they may not have been going for it anymore. They may have decided not to go after the death penalty. So Pam Bondi was saying, you will go after the death penalty. So I'm reading between the lines. The reason why I'm also reading between the lines is because this is what got me in trouble. Karen Friedman Ignolo gave the official statement after Pam Bondi gave her statement that stated the decision to execute Luigi Manjone is political and goes against the recommendation of local federal prosecutors, the law, and historic precedent. What does that mean? Reading between the lines. I believe Karen Ignolo was told behind the scenes by the federal government in the state of New York that they weren't going to go for the death penalty. It was kind of like one of those agreements behind closed doors kind of thing. Hey, by the way, we're not going to go for the death penalty. And Karen's been playing nice with the federal government, saying, if you need more time, you can take more time. Maybe you can take more time instead of demanding that her client have the right to a speedy trial, like Karen could have done. Karen could have insisted, because that's a right by U.S. citizens. You have a right to a speedy trial. She could have said, no, you don't get 2-3 extra months to find an indictment, because the federal government, I'm going really fast for a lot of you, so if you haven't watched a lot of my lives, I realize I'm going super fast for a lot of you. The federal government still has not been able to indict Luigi Manjone. What does an indictment mean? That means that a grand jury has already been convened. A grand jury's job, their entire job of a grand jury, is to look at the evidence against an individual and decide if it's worthy to go to trial on. Is there enough evidence to go to trial? A grand jury does not determine guilt or innocence. The only thing a grand jury does is decide, do you have enough evidence, strong evidence, that you can proceed to trial and not be wasting taxpayers' money? The federal government has not been able to get an indictment on Luigi Manjone to this point. Now, I say not been able to. They would say it's not a matter of we can't get it. We're just continuing to build our case. We want a little bit more time to make it stronger. I would read between the lines. If they could have gotten an indictment 2 months ago, they would have had the indictment 2 months ago. They're struggling to get the indictment. And I've also theorized, and this is, I'm not a lawyer, but I've talked to lawyers and they say that I've got something to this as well, possibly. So I've got some backing on the idea that part of this is waiting on what happens in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Because when Luigi Manjone was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, it came with a so-called confession letter, a notebook that the police are calling a manifesto. Luigi Manjone did not call it a manifesto. The police are calling it a manifesto, including the supposed weapon of commission in the murder, and so on. All of those things may have been an illegal arrest and potentially planted evidence. And so as Thomas Dickey, the attorney representing Luigi in Altoona, for the charges of presenting false identification to a police officer, which I've explained numerous times, was not actually against the law. And I know everybody's like, that's bullshit. It's always against the law to present a false ID to an officer. No, it's not. Thomas Dickey pointed out why. I read the law. I read the case. I read the Supreme Court upholding it. I explained it all. We won't cover it now, but if you want to watch my other lives, I will explain it in detail, what the law is and why it wasn't illegal for Luigi Manjone to provide false identification to an officer. And I know you're going to cry bullshit if you haven't looked into it. Please look into it. You will understand it fully. I've gone over it a million times. But the fact that we are all waiting, everyone's waiting, and there's a deadline. There's a deadline, I think, of April 16th or 17th, that the Commonwealth, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania must make a decision in Luigi Manjone's arrest. Was his arrest legal or not? The federal government has until the 17th or the 18th, I think it's the 18th of April, to decide whether to indict Luigi Manjone or not. I find that those two dates are awfully suspiciously close together. So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has to decide whether that they legally arrested Luigi, and if so, all the things that they say they have on him, such as a confession letter, a manifesto, and the murder weapon, are all admissible in court. Or did they not get him legally, and those things are not going to come into court, and they have to try Luigi Manjone on different evidence? If they have to get him on different evidence, it may, understand, I'm not telling you this is what's happening, this is my analysis, and I should be able to analyze these things. It may be that the grand jury won't find that good enough. They'll be like, just because you got a photo that kind of looks like a guy, and you might be able to prove that he might have been in the area at the time, without a confession and the murder weapon and all these things that you used to have, there's not a case there. So it's possible the federal government's waiting for that. Now, My prediction, and I'm not a lawyer, let me make sure I make this 100% like for the 10th time. I'm not a lawyer, but my prediction is if the Altoona, Pennsylvania arrest does not stick and all the things that they had on Luigi Manjone in Altoona, allegedly, if that does not stick, I believe the federal government is going to have to go for a plea deal, more than likely. That they're going to realize that trying to get the death penalty without the evidence that they have now would be really difficult. And so I would expect them to be more in the mood to start to do a plea. Like, we're still going to give him life in prison. He's never going to get out of our custody. But maybe we won't be able to go after the death penalty without that signed confession saying, yes, I did it and I acted alone and here's my manifesto about how I hate the health insurance industry. Which, again, there are people who believe that that's planted evidence and was never something that Luigi had in the first place. But that's a whole different ball of wax. I hope you're following me. I realize that sometimes I'm a little disjointed and I talk super fast. I'm going to take a breather, Rhonda. Do I have anything to address so far?
People are just saying that Karen is also keeping him out of Rikers.
Right.
And playing nice, probably, for that.
Right. Let me address that one more time as briefly as I can before I finish this whole fight between Pam Bondi and Karen Ignolo. What she's saying, and I had a discussion with an attorney on one of my lives, Cynthia Thornton. Gosh, sorry, Cynthia. I had Cynthia Thornton on, and she had an excellent point, which is that the federal government currently has Luigi Manjone in their custody. The state of New York is going to be going first in the trial before the federal government. So the state of New York has the right to try, or is being granted the right to try Luigi Manjone first. And then the federal government in New York is going to try Luigi Manjone second. But he's in federal custody. And right now the federal government gets to decide when Luigi Manjone is allowed to go to Pennsylvania to defend himself and when Luigi Manjone is allowed to defend himself in the state, because the federal government is keeping control of him. So what this attorney that I was talking to, Cynthia Thornton, was saying was that it's very likely that if Karen Ignolo demands her client's right to a speedy trial, it doesn't mean that the indictment can't come 4 months later. They can still indict Luigi Manjone. All it means is that he would have to be let go and remanded into the custody of the state. So if the federal government lets go of Luigi Manjone by saying, well, okay, we haven't gotten an indictment. We can only hold him for 30 days without an indictment. So therefore, if you really want us to let him go, we will let him go, and the state of New York will now take over custody of Luigi Manjone. And if the state of New York takes him over, then he gets sent to Rikers, which is a notoriously horrible prison that many bad things have happened. So there's an argument to be made that Karen Ignolo playing nice with the federal government and giving them more and more time is because it is in the benefit of her client to stay in federal custody and not go to New York state custody where he'd go to Rikers. I hope that answers any questions on any people had on that, because it's a really good point. And it's, to me, it's maybe even more valid than my theory that they're waiting for Altoona, Pennsylvania's, position. But I think they're both valid here. I think they're waiting. The federal government's waiting to see if the arrest is going to stand up in Pennsylvania to get the indictment. In the meantime, Karen Ignolo is perfectly happy with her client staying in federal custody and staying out of Rikers and not being in the custody of New York State. So I think those things both go hand in hand, personally. But this is what got me really, really hammered as we finish up the whole fight between Karen and whatever. By doing this, so anyways, let me back up just a hair. The decision to execute Luigi is political and goes against the recommendation of federal law prosecutors. Again, because I believe that she was told they weren't going to do that. Now Pam Bondi is saying, yes, you will do it. While claiming to protect against murder, the federal government moves to commit the premeditated state-sponsored murder of Luigi. By doing this, they are defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that continues to terrorize the American people. This was what I was in the middle of commenting on when my live was shut off, because I was quoting Karen Ignolo, who was calling the healthcare industry a murderous healthcare industry. And I was shut off for hate speech because I was calling out a group, I believe, the healthcare industry, as being murderous. Those weren't my words. That was Karen Ignolo, the attorney for Luigi Manjone. I even stated on that live, I think before I got shut off, that I have stated over and over again, no court in New York or the federal government is going to allow the healthcare system to be put on trial. So, and that's what I predict. In other words, what's going to happen is Karen is setting up a scenario. And this is exactly what I was doing when I got shut off. And I was doing exactly what I'm going to do for you right now on YouTube. I was doing this. By her saying that you're defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry, she's setting up that we are going to put the healthcare system on trial, and it's going to be what was said on the Law and Order special, which is that the argument is that Luigi Manjone, if he did this, and we do not know that Karen Ignolo is confessing that her client did it and that she's going for this defense, but that she's tipping her hat perhaps here by saying that Luigi Manjone, if he did this, did it in an act of self-defense or in something that we call the defense of other doctrine. I'm getting nervous as I talk about it because this is literally when my live got shut off. It's coming back to me. All the trauma is coming back to me. I was literally trying to explain the defense of other doctrine when I got shut off for hate speech. So the defense of other doctrine explains, in most states, I think, not only do you have the right to self-defense. So if somebody's trying to kill you and you kill them in self-defense, then that is self-defense. People can't be held in jail for defending themselves. Neither can you, by the extension of most states, be held accountable for killing someone if it was in defense of others' life, their imminent life. So, as I was stating last time, as the trauma is coming back, if you witness somebody being beaten to death in front of you or stabbed to death in front of you, and you have the ability to stop that person and it ends with their death because you were trying to save someone, you can't be held accountable for killing someone in the defense of others. Now, what the Law and Order episode was showing was what I was going to say. This could end up being a landmark case in America because, as the judge said, when he was making a ruling on this, is they said, look, the defense of others doctrine was designed for something that happens when you see somebody's life in imminent danger and you do something immediately to stop it in the act of something that's happening imminently. So therefore, the prosecution argued in the fictional story of Law and Order that was depicting Luigi Manjone, you can't claim that you're saving lives by killing the CEO of a healthcare company because nobody was in imminent danger. Nobody's going to die that very moment right in front of you. So therefore, you can't use the defense of others doctrine. Now, the counter for the defense in the fictionalized Law and Order episode was that they had a statistician come on and say that 48,000 people died that year, prediction, because of denial of claims. So every second people are dying. Every second people are dying. And so therefore it is imminent. Every moment someone dies because of a denial of claim on the industry's part. So therefore she was arguing that, yes, I acknowledge this has never been interpreted this way, the defense of others doctrine, but literally people are dying every moment in this country because of the practices of denial of claims and the murderous health insurance industry. And so the judge was like, you know what? You're right. It's never been applied that way. But you know what? That's a decision for the jury. And so it's the jury's decision now to decide if that's how we're going to interpret that law. Is it legitimate that you can defend the thousands of lives that you can't name, whether it was Billy, Bob, Sue, or whoever, because it's just a statistic. Every moment people are dying. So that whole thing of whether or not the law can be applied that way is something that the jury will decide. And if the jury decides that that can be done that way, it'll change law in America forever. That's my prediction. That's why I keep saying this will be a landmark case if that happens. But I've also stated on my enormous rant, man, I can talk a lot. Anyways, I've stated on my enormous rant that no court system is going to allow the healthcare system to be put on trial. I'm going to correct myself in a moment on that, because as soon as they start saying, if Karen does go down that route, hey, by the way, this was in the defense of all the people who were dying due to denial of claims, Your Honor, the objection will be, objection. The healthcare system's not on trial here. Luigi Manjone's on trial for killing an innocent man. So, and I would expect any judge to say, sustained. The healthcare system's not on trial. Luigi Manjone's on trial. And so I said, while it's great for fiction, and it was a great scenario for the fiction thing, that you're going to put the healthcare system on trial, and while it might indicate from Karen Ignolo's thing, her official statement, that she is even setting that up, that she's calling the healthcare industry murderous, that even Karen Ignolo is suggesting, we're going to go for self-defense or defense of others doctrine. which would be super, super interesting. But I can't see any judge ever allowing the healthcare system to be put on trial. Now, I told you I was going to correct myself. I didn't think in the O.J. Simpson case, because I'm old and have gray hair and remember the O.J. Simpson case, I watched it religiously. In the O.J. Simpson case, I also didn't believe that anyone and their dog would allow the Los Angeles Police Department to be put on trial for racism. That was that it would be the same thing. You know, Your Honor, the LA Police Department is not on trial here. O.J. Simpson's on trial here. Guess what? That trial became about the LA Police Department and racism in the LAPD. Mark Furman was put on trial in that trial of O.J. Simpson, and they basically convinced a jury. One could argue. I'm making a rhetorical type of argument that I'm not saying. I'm just saying one could argue that the jury believed that the Los Angeles Police Department was corrupt, racist, and had motivation to plant evidence on a black man because he was black and they were racists. And that ultimately led to a jury that said, I don't care if O.J. Simpson did it or not. He's not guilty because it's a racist police department. That same kind of logic, and this would get me shut off on TikTok, would say, I don't care if Luigi Manjone did it or not. It's a murderous healthcare system. Right? So if you apply the logic, it's the same thing I didn't think was going to happen in O.J. Simpson's case, but indeed, in my interpretation, O.J. Simpson was his attorneys were able to put the Los Angeles Police Department on trial for racism, and it became about racism and not about what O.J. Simpson did. So will this become a landmark case when it will become not about what Luigi Manjone allegedly did, but about the murderous healthcare system? Will it become that? I don't think so, but it's happened before where I was stunned. All right, so we're done with my rants about, John Paul Renison, Shawn Morrow, the interesting thing there, the Bondi and Ignolo thing, and we've talked a lot about my TikTok restrictions, so now you know exactly why. So we've covered all of that. The last couple things I want to talk about is a little bit about freedom of speech versus freedom of reach and what it means when platforms shut you down and take away your voice for simply asking questions that are difficult. And I realize at this point that a lot of you don't want to hear me bitch about my personal complaints and who cares that TikTok shut you down? That's between you and TikTok. I really don't care to hear. So if you want to check out, I thank you so much for hanging out for the main meat of this. I'm kind of doing almost a semi-close.
Don't you invite people to leave?
But I just want to say, this is going to be a personal rant for the most part about our Constitution and freedom of speech. So the First Amendment, so I'll back off. Rhonda's like, don't tell people to leave. Okay, I won't tell you to leave. But if you do, I won't be mad. But anyways, our Constitution's First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, I'll slow down, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, this is the big one, or of the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay, so that's our First Amendment right. And I've heard for the longest time, TikTok shut me down, they're suppressing my freedom of speech. And rightly so, I've got friends that say, sorry, you can bitch all you want. Your freedom of speech isn't restricted. Your freedom of reach is. And also, TikTok's not the federal government. So TikTok can do whatever they want to you all day long, every day, and twice on Sunday, to borrow a Koberger thing. I keep doing that all the time. Anyways, the point being is that they're a private company, and they have the right to allow their service to be used any way they want to. So I don't have a protection of freedom of speech on TikTok's platform. This is true, and I acknowledge that. And so in that regards, what do? You don't do anything. But it starts to become a muddied water when you realize several things. The U.S. courts have determined they have not defined what the press means, but what they have defined in U.S. courts is that you do not have to have a press pass to be considered the press. The press, by their definition, is anyone who reports on the facts of a case. One can argue that's all I do on The Devil's Advocates, is I talk about the facts in the case and I give analysis. By the way, one can argue CNN and Fox, whether you're liberal or conservative, they are opinion pieces. They're not really news by our regular standard. It's not just the facts. They are giving you a spin, even though Fox likes to brag, we're the no spin network, which really meant that all media is liberal spin, so we're going to do a positive conservative spin, and therefore it's going to cancel out to a no spin, but both of them have spin. Anyways, the point being is that when you listen to the news, they're doing nothing different, in my opinion, than what I do. And in fact, the U.S. courts have said that you don't have to have a press badge and you do not have to be recognized as an official government-sponsored news agency to be able to report the news and therefore have protection of freedom of speech. So I, as a podcaster, have every right to say and criticize my government, my judicial system, my law enforcement, and mainstream media. I have the right to do so. I will not go to prison for it, is what they're basically saying. I will not go to prison for it. But again, TikTok does not have to give me a platform. Now here's where it gets a little blurred area. When the government supports these companies, when they give them tax benefits and special access, for example, if you work for CNN and Fox, you're invited to go to the White House and be able to ask questions of the president directly. But if they decide, for example, that they don't like your questions, they can just remove your access to the White House. You are not guaranteed as a news agency in the United States access to the White House. That's not something that is anywhere in anything. You can be Fox and be kicked out of the White House and report all day long, anything you want. The government can't do anything to shut you down. But they can remove your access to the White House press room, and that's not against anybody's free speech rights. You're allowed to say whatever you want from the corner of your house or in your bedroom or wherever. You can talk all day long. But you don't necessarily have a press pass to come in to talk to the White House. Same kind of thing happens with TikTok. So when we have social media platforms that say, yeah, you have the freedom, Mr. Devil's Advocates, to rant all you want about your personal grievances and bitches, but you can do it from your bedroom on a camera to nobody because YouTube won't show it, TikTok won't show it, Facebook won't show it, because they're all private companies, which, by the way, are in bed with the U.S. government and get tax benefits and tax write-offs, which the government will take away from them if they don't play ball. So they'll be like, you know what, TikTok? You're right. I, as the government, can't tell you that you can't have devil's advocates on your platform talking about what he wants. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you that you won't get tax benefits and you won't get write-offs and you won't get special protections and we won't have your back if something happens bad. So maybe it's in your best interest to keep the devil's advocates from talking about their opinions. And that's up to you. You're a private company. I'm not telling you what to do. You can do whatever you want. So it's my personal grievance. Could I form my own platform? Maybe. But you know what? If I want to have my own platform, I have to have a website. When I rent a website from a company, there's a hosting company that will host my website. They also are in bed with the US government and they get to decide, hey, we don't like what the Devil's Advocates is doing on their website that they have hosted at my hosting company. We're going to shut him off. So you say that they're not curtailing freedom of speech, but our news now is delivered by social media. More people tune into social media to get their news nowadays than CNN and Fox. And that's a statistic I could show if I wanted to spend time looking it up. But it seemed to understand that this is the way it's moving. A lot of people get their news from X or Twitter and other places than mainstream media. Mainstream media is in fear of they're losing numbers because people are getting their news and they're getting informed from social media. So in a way, social media is becoming the news. So to say that I get shut down because I don't support the official narrative, it's a super gray area. Okay, the rant's over on the freedom of speech. Thank you for listening to my freedom of speech. So, last couple things I'll tell you. The future of the lives, I will intend to go back on TikTok. On April 9th is when I believe that my restriction is put in place. But I will warn you about this if you're a TikTok follower and you watch me over there. If I have one more time where they shut me off like that, I believe the next ban is a month minimum. So not just a week, but a month minimum. And it could be a permanent ban off the account forever. So I'm super nervous because I now have to ask, how authentic can I be to myself? I can start talking differently on TikTok so that I don't draw their ire. Because if I say the wrong thing one night, if I mention Karen Ignolo called the health insurance industry murderous, and then they shut me down, I'm shut down forever. Done. And if I try to come back with some other account name and my face gets seen, I violated terms of service and I'm done again. I will be done forever on that platform. So I will promise you that I will make that effort to, one, be authentic with you and always report what I'm thinking about the matter, but I will do a better job of trying to understand what TikTok is freaking out about and say it more cleverly, because I think you, as my audience, are pretty educated people. I think you're pretty smart. So I feel like I can say things without saying things and you'll still know what I'm saying. And they'll have a hard time. And I believe that they'll have a hard time, shutting me down if I'm not saying exactly what they want me to say to get me in trouble. So I'll say it in a way that you understand exactly what I mean, because I'm a smart guy. And I think you're a smart guy, and we'll work together on that. That's it for tonight. Do you have any questions, Rhonda, that I should address or something that came up?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. All right, so I'm going to go full screen for my sign off. By the way, I got this little cool, like, Starry Night kind of thing going on behind me, but the white balance sucks. And if I move my hands up here, look at what it does to the camera. I have some issues to do. I'm not a studio guy. I'm a talking head. I can talk my ass off. Hopefully you heard everything tonight. Thank you for all the people who did come over from TikTok and took the time off that platform to come see me. I believe in TikTok. Despite all my rants, I believe in TikTok. I think it's a great platform. I think it's got a lot going on. I intend to go back there until they kick me off and tell me I'm not welcome anymore. I got some other things in the work behind the scenes. I may end up on a podcast soon that's on, I think, Apple Podcasts and several other places, a website, maybe even on Spotify. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that podcast.
Wow, you're a superstar.
I may be interviewed coming up here shortly, and if that goes well, if the interview goes well, so I will have the interview, I believe, and if it goes well, you may get to hear me on a podcast. If you want to do that, and why it's exciting to you, and I don't want to tease this too much because again, there's no promises. They could decide not to do the interview, or if they do the interview, they can decide that I'm just a nutbag. But I will get a chance, supposedly, to explain why it is that people support Luigi Manjone and where this groundswell of support is coming for Luigi Manjone. And I'm being given the opportunity because so many of you who watch this show, who watch me on TikTok, have told this particular group that if you want to hear somebody explain really well why there's so much support Luigi Manjone, you should talk to the Devil's Advocates. And so they may do that. So thank you all, by the way, for thinking of me. And thank you all who sent me personal information that I could add to my show tonight about Shawn Morrow. Was it Shawn Morrow? I already forgot the name. It was Shawn Morrow. So again, apologies to Shawn Morrow. You already had your day where everybody accused you of being the adjuster. But you know, we're just talking like adults. That's it for tonight. I'm done rambling. Thank you so much for showing up, and have a good evening.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming, and please subscribe.
Yeah, please subscribe. Thank you. That's awesome. Please subscribe. Get these numbers up on YouTube because I may not have a home. By the way, I said I was done. TikTok may be shut off. TikTok may be shut off tomorrow.
Oh, wait. Somebody said that they'd extended 75 days by Trump.
Okay. So, yeah, we were waiting. The 70-day first extension was due to shut off tomorrow. I had not heard that they extended another 75 days.
Your followers told us that.
I'm going to take you on your word for that because I expected that to be the outcome. So we got another 70-day extension. So I'll be back on TikTok April 9th. Have a good evening, everybody.
Yay.